Welcome back to our channel. Have you ever held a simple quarter in your hand and thought nothing of it, just 25 cents, good for a vending machine or parking meter? What if I told you that one of those seemingly ordinary quarters in your pocket could actually be worth thousands of dollars? Hidden in plain sight among countless coins, some rare and remarkable U.S. Washington quarter-dollar coins, like the 1974 issue, have stunned collectors and auction houses alike, thanks to rare minting errors, unusual planchets, and transitional anomalies. These little metal discs, often overlooked, carry stories of mistakes and miracles that have transformed them into coveted treasures. Tonight, let's uncover the hidden history, the numismatic magic, and the astonishing value behind the humble quarter, and why you just might want to dig through your old change jar before you go to bed. The story of the Washington quarter itself begins in 1932, when the United States Mint released it to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Designed by sculptor John Flanagan, the coin has since become one of the most familiar designs in American pockets and purses. Millions of these coins rolled out of the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints each year, each bearing that iconic bust of Washington facing left, a symbol of American history and endurance. But even among such massive numbers, rare mistakes occasionally slipped through, mistakes that collectors today are willing to pay dearly to own. One such surprising chapter in this saga comes in the form of the 1974 Washington quarter. By all accounts, the year was unremarkable in terms of the quarter's design, no major changes, no special commemoratives. But behind the scenes at the Mint, subtle yet spectacular anomalies made their way into circulation. The most famous of these is the elusive 1974 quarter struck on a 40% silver planchet, a leftover from the previous decade, when the Mint transitioned from 90% silver to clad copper-nickel coins. Somehow, a few of these silver planchets found their way back into the presses in 1974, resulting in a handful of incredibly rare transitional era coins. These coins weigh slightly more than the standard clad quarter, about 6.25 grams instead of 5.67, and when struck, they carry a beautiful, frosty silver sheen that's instantly recognizable to the trained eye. One of these rarities sold at auction for over $11,000, proof that the tiniest oversight at the Mint can result in a collector's dream, and that's just the beginning of the story. For collectors, the thrill often comes from spotting even more subtle errors, like the double die obverse. On some 1974 quarters, particularly those minted in Denver, the dies themselves were improperly manufactured, resulting in a faint doubling of the design elements on the obverse side of the coin. Look closely at the motto, "In God We Trust," or at the word "Liberty" above Washington's head and you may see the telltale signs of doubling. To the casual observer it might seem like wear and tear, but to a collector, it's a remarkable minting error that can elevate the value of a single coin from pocket change to several $100s, or even more depending on condition and demand. Even proof coins, those special, mirror-finish coins struck for collectors, can hold secrets of their own. The San Francisco Mint produced millions of proof quarters in the 1970s, but sometimes even these precision-made coins escaped with errors. On some 1974 proof quarters, collectors have discovered double dies or weak strikes, anomalies that make an already scarce coin even more desirable. The shimmering surfaces of proof coins tend to highlight even the slightest error, making them a playground for eagle-eyed collectors who search for those rare imperfections that tell a story. To truly appreciate why these errors command such high prices, it helps to understand the historical context. The 1970s were a busy time for the U.S. Mint. The move away from silver to copper-nickel clad composition in the mid-1960s left an inventory of silver planchets sitting in storage. Workers rushed to meet increasing demand for coinage amid inflation and economic uncertainty, and the pressure to produce millions of coins quickly meant that quality control sometimes faltered. Transitional errors occurred when silver planchets or other leftover blanks were mistakenly fed into presses set for clad coins. That's how a few rare 1974 quarters, intended to be copper-nickel, were struck on silver planchets and released into the wild. These wrong metal errors are among the most dramatic and valuable of all modern U.S. coin mistakes. At auction, the excitement over these coins can be palpable. In one memorable sale, a 1974 quarter struck on a 40% silver planchet in superb condition drew fierce bidding before selling for over $13,000, more than 50,000 times its face value. Auctioneers describe the thrill of watching collectors' eyes widen as they see the unmistakable gleam of silver on a coin that shouldn't exist. For those who find such a coin tucked away in a drawer, it can feel like uncovering buried treasure. Even for errors that are less dramatic than a silver planchet, the market remains strong. Coins exhibiting clear double die obverse in mint state condition, graded MS65 or higher, often bring prices in the $1,200 to $1,500 range, depending on how prominent the doubling appears. Those in pristine proof condition with errors can bring even more. For collectors, part of the appeal lies in the hunt itself, the sense that somewhere out there, in a roll of quarters from the bank or an old jar on a shelf, there may be a hidden gem waiting to be discovered. The stories of those who have stumbled across these rarities are as varied and fascinating as the coins themselves. One collector recalls cashing in a bag of quarters at the bank when he noticed one coin felt slightly heavier and had a brighter tone than the others. A trip to a local coin shop confirmed it was a 1974 quarter struck on a silver planchet, worth thousands. Another hobbyist tells of spending hours examining rolls of quarters under a magnifying glass before spotting the faint doubling on the letters of Liberty on a 1974 quarter. His very first major find. The numismatic world is full of these small miracles, errors born of haste, oversight, or sheer chance that somehow manage to slip past inspectors and into circulation. The U.S. Mint strives for perfection, but in a business that produces billions of coins each year, perfection is an elusive goal. And it's in those rare imperfections that collectors find beauty and value. If you're wondering how to tell if you have one of these rare 1974 quarters, start with a good scale. A silver planchet coin will weigh slightly more than a standard clad quarter, around 6.25 grams instead of 5.67. Check the edge too. Silver planchet coins lack the copper-colored stripe visible on the edges of clad coins. For doubling errors, a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe will help you examine the fine details of the letters and numbers. And for proof coins, inspect the mirrored surfaces carefully for signs of doubling or weak strikes. Of course, not every unusual coin is valuable. Coins with damage or post-mint alterations rarely command premiums. But when a genuine error is verified by a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC, it can open the door to impressive returns, and give the owner a wonderful story to tell. The allure of coins like the rare 1974 Washington quarter lies not just in their monetary value, but in the way they connect us to history and to the human element of minting itself. Every coin is a little artifact, a small metal witness to its time. And sometimes, it's the tiny, unexpected flaws that make it unforgettable. For seasoned collectors, these coins are a reminder that the hunt never ends, that even after decades of searching, there are still surprises to be found. For everyday viewers, they offer a sense of wonder, that something extraordinary might be sitting quietly in a change jar or cash register, just waiting to be noticed. So tonight, I encourage you to take a closer look at your own quarters. Pull out that old jar of coins, open that dusty drawer, and sift through those rolls from the bank. Hold each coin up to the light, feel its weight, and look closely at the letters and edges. Because somewhere among them, there just might be a 1974 quarter with a story, and a value, that will take your breath away. If you find something that seems unusual, don't rush to spend it. Do a little research, consult a coin dealer or send it to a grading service. You never know, you might discover a hidden treasure, worth far more than you ever imagined. And even if you don't find one this time, you'll have taken the first step into a fascinating world of history, mystery, and collecting that has captivated people for generations. Every coin has a story. And sometimes, the most valuable stories are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone like you to uncover them. So go ahead, check your coins. Your next great find could be just a quarter away. Have you ever thought about the quarters jingling in your pocket or lying forgotten in a jar at home? Just 25 cents, so ordinary you hardly glance at them. But what if one of those ordinary coins was actually worth thousands of dollars? What if hidden among the countless Washington quarters struck by the U.S. Mint in 1978 was a rare minting anomaly so valuable that collectors today pay upwards of six figures just to own it? Tonight, we uncover the surprising history, the hidden errors, and the staggering value of the seemingly unremarkable 1978 U.S. Washington $quarter coin. A coin you might already have without knowing it could be the key to a fortune. The story of the Washington quarter is woven deeply into American history. First introduced in 1932 to honor George Washington's 200th birthday, the coin has remained a familiar sight in pockets and purses for over 90 years. Its clean, simple design by sculptor John Flanagan has stood the test of time, symbolizing stability and heritage. But even in a coin that appears so uniform and consistent, the U.S. Mint's relentless production of billions of pieces per year left room for rare, unintentional mistakes. Those mistakes are what make the 1978 quarter so fascinating to collectors today. By 1978, the Washington quarter had long since transitioned from 90% silver to copper nickel clad, a change made in 1965 to combat rising silver prices. But in the busy production environment of the late 1970s, when the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints churned out hundreds of millions of coins each year, the occasional anomaly still slipped through. For the everyday spender, these errors often went unnoticed. But for the sharp-eyed collector, a faint doubling here or a wrong metal there could turn an otherwise ordinary coin into a treasure point. One of the most prized errors of the 1978 quarter is the result of a transitional planchet mistake. Somehow, amidst the chaos of production, a leftover silver-copper clad planchet from proof coinage was mistakenly used for a business strike quarter. While all circulation quarters in 1978 were supposed to be copper-nickel clad, these rare errors have been identified by their distinct weight and luster. Weighing more than the standard 5.67 grams of a normal clad quarter and displaying a subtle silver sheen, these transitional planchet errors are incredibly scarce. One verified example, properly authenticated and graded, brought a breathtaking $58,000 at auction a few years ago, sending shockwaves through the numismatic community. Even beyond transitional errors, 1978 saw another kind of collectible anomaly emerge. On a small number of coins, a double die obverse created a ghostly doubling effect on the words, "In God We Trust," and "Liberty," as well as the date itself. To the untrained eye, it may just look like blur or shadow, but under magnification, the doubled letters and numbers tell the story of a die error, a mechanical flaw that escaped the mint's quality control. Well-preserved examples of these double die quarters can command anywhere from several hundred to several $1,000s, depending on their condition and prominence of the doubling. Mint state pieces, in particular, are highly coveted, their sharp strikes preserving every nuance of the error, and then there are the proof errors, one of the most tantalizing mysteries for collectors. In 1978, the San Francisco Mint produced stunning mirror-finish proof quarters for collectors, but even here, imperfections occasionally slipped through. On some proof strikes, faint doubling can be detected on the obverse, and on rare occasions, a proof planchet was accidentally struck with business dies or vice versa. These hybrid coins, a sort of Frankenstein's monster of minting, are extremely rare and draw intense bidding whenever they appear at auction. Part of what makes these errors so thrilling is the context of the time. In the late 1970s, inflation, fuel crises, and changing metals markets kept pressure on the mint to maintain production quotas while adapting to new realities. Quality control inspectors worked at lightning speed, and in that haste, the occasional silver planchet or misaligned die could easily pass unnoticed. To the mint, it was just another day's work. But to collectors decades later, these tiny mistakes have become symbols of rarity, chance, and the human element in coin production. Auction houses have been the stage where these quiet little coins reveal their true worth. One particularly dramatic sale featured a 1978 quarter struck on a silver-proof planchet, graded MS-66 by a leading service, which ultimately sold for over $62,000 after an intense bidding war. Other examples, showcasing crisp doubled dies, have brought between $10,500 and $13,500, while pristine proof errors have commanded prices upwards of $10,000. Each of these coins shares something in common, a story of oversight that became a treasure. Collectors who have found these coins tell their stories with a mix of disbelief and joy. One man recounts going through a roll of quarters purchased at his local bank, spotting what seemed to be a slightly shinier, heavier coin among the lot. That single find, after certification, netted him tens of thousands of dollars. Another hobbyist recalls searching through proof sets inherited from a grandparent and noticing subtle doubling on a 1978 S quarter. That coin, though tucked away for decades, was still crisp and sharp, fetching a remarkable premium when finally sold. For those who dream of making a discovery like this, it helps to know what to look for. First, weigh your quarters. A silver planchet error will tip the scale above the standard 5.67 grams, often closer to 6.25. Second, examine the edges. Normal clad quarters have a distinct copper-colored stripe on the edge, while silver errors lack this telltale sign. Third, use a magnifying glass to inspect the words and numbers on the obverse, paying close attention to doubling, particularly on Liberty and In God We Trust. And don't forget to scrutinize proof coins as well. Their mirror-like surfaces often make any doubling or striking error stand out even more clearly. There's a special kind of magic to these finds. They remind us that even in something as mechanical and regimented as modern minting, there's still room for imperfection, for surprise, for wonder. These are coins that slipped through the cracks, escaped detection, and made their way into the world as silent witnesses to history. And in the hands of a collector, they become more than just currency. They become stories worth telling and legacies worth preserving. For seasoned numismatists, these rare 1978 quarters offer another challenge in the endless hunt, another white whale to chase. For casual hobbyists, they offer the tantalizing possibility that a single coin, long ignored, could turn out to be a life-changing discovery. Either way, they invite us all to slow down, to look closely, and to appreciate the little things we too often overlook. So tonight, why not take a few minutes to check your own collection? Pull that jar of coins off the shelf, dig through that old change in the car, or pick up a roll of quarters at the bank and start looking. Feel their weight. Examine their edges. Hold them up to the light. Somewhere in the mix, you just might find a 1978 Washington quarter hiding its secret, and if you do find one that seems unusual, don't spend it. Have it checked by a professional, or send it to a reputable grading service for authentication. Because that ordinary little quarter in your hand might not be so ordinary after all. As collectors and auction records have shown, the value of these 1978 Washington quarters can range from $48,000 to $132,000, depending on the type of error, its condition, and the eye of the beholder. Just imagine, a coin you've had all along, suddenly revealed to be a rare and priceless treasure. So go ahead. Take a look at your coins tonight. That next great find, that next big story, could be just a quarter away. Have you ever stopped to really look at the change in your pocket? A quarter is just a quarter, right? 25 cents, something we toss into vending machines or parking meters without a second thought. But what if one of those ordinary Washington quarters you've overlooked all these years was actually worth tens of thousands of dollars? What if hiding among the countless 1997 quarters struck by the U.S. Mint was a rare error, a minting anomaly so unusual that collectors today pay six figures just to own one? Tonight, we uncover the hidden history, the fascinating errors, and the remarkable value of the seemingly humble 1997 U.S. Washington quarter-dollar coin. And you might just discover you already own one without realizing its worth. The Washington quarter has been a mainstay of American currency since its debut in 1932. John Flanagan's classic design of George Washington's profile has seen the nation through generations of change and remains one of the most recognizable coins in the world. By 1997, millions of these coins were being struck annually in copper-nickel clad, the silver content long gone since the mint's transition in 1965. For most of us, these coins came and went without notice. But in the rush of modern minting, even in the 1990s, mistakes still happened, and those mistakes became treasures. The year 1997 is particularly fascinating to collectors because it sits on the eve of the state quarters program. The mint was preparing for one of the largest numismatic undertakings in its history, and the demand for high production put pressure on machines, dies, and operators. In the process, rare errors slipped through, and those errors are what make the 1997 quarter so coveted today. One of the most famous errors of the 1997 quarter is a transitional planchet mistake. Even though all regular quarters were supposed to be struck in copper-nickel clad, a small number were somehow struck on leftover planchets intended for other denominations or special strikes. These transitional errors can sometimes be detected by weight alone. A normal 1997 quarter should weigh about 5.67 grams, but error examples have been found on planchets weighing more, often closer to 6.25 grams, and lacking the telltale copper stripe visible on the coin's edge. These planchets were never meant to be used for regular quarters, and yet somehow they were. One such example, graded MS-66, was sold at auction for over $42,000, astonishing collectors and sending a wave of renewed interest through the hobby. Another highly sought-after error from 1997 is the double die obverse. These coins show doubling on the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," and "Liberty," as well as on the date. Sometimes the doubling is subtle and requires magnification to appreciate, but on stronger examples it is clear even to the naked eye. The phenomenon occurs when the die used to strike the coin shifts slightly between strikes while being prepared, creating a ghostly second image on the coin. For sharp-eyed collectors, these errors are prizes, and well-preserved examples in mint state can bring several $1,000s at auction, with the most dramatic examples reaching well into five figures. Proof errors from 1997 are also a fascinating part of this story. The San Francisco Mint, tasked with producing beautiful mirror-finish proof coins for collectors, occasionally struck proofs on the wrong planchet or with misaligned dies. Some 1997 proof quarters even exhibit faint doubling or a mix of proof and business strike features, making them highly unusual. These hybrid errors are extremely scarce and highly desirable to collectors who specialize in the rarest kinds of minting anomalies. What makes these coins so captivating isn't just their value, but their story. By the late 1990s, the U.S. Mint was at a crossroads, balancing the need to keep up with modern technology while also dealing with aging equipment and unprecedented production demands. The pressure to produce billions of coins each year meant that some errors were inevitable. In 1997 alone, the Philadelphia and Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of quarters, while the San Francisco Mint contributed proof sets for collectors. Yet even amidst such tight controls, human error and mechanical mishaps created something rare, something extraordinary, a handful of coins that today are worth more than their weight in gold. Collectors often tell stories of their surprise discoveries. One collector recalls sifting through a roll of quarters from the bank, spotting one that felt slightly heavier and looked just a bit different from the rest. After sending it in for authentication, he learned it had been struck on a silver planchet, a transitional error worth nearly $50,000. Another collector, armed with a magnifying glass, noticed faint doubling on a 1997 quarter he'd kept in a drawer for years. That coin later sold for several $1,000s at a numismatic auction. Auction records from the past decade illustrate just how high demand has grown for these rare 1997 quarters. In one memorable auction, a brilliant uncirculated transitional planchet error sold for $45,000 after spirited bidding. Another, showcasing strong double die features on the obverse, fetched just over $18,000 in near-mint condition. Even proof error examples have climbed in value, with some selling for upwards of $10,000 depending on their rarity and grade. These figures are a testament not only to the rarity of the coins themselves but also to the enduring fascination collectors have with the unexpected. If you want to know what to look for, start with the basics. First, weigh your quarters. Any coin that weighs noticeably more than the standard 5.67 grams deserves closer inspection. Second, check the edges. Regular clad quarters show a copper stripe around the rim, while silver errors and other planchet mistakes may not. Third, examine the lettering on the obverse closely under a magnifying glass. Look for doubled letters and numbers, especially on "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date. Lastly, don't overlook proof coins, especially if you have original proof sets. Even proof coins can exhibit rare errors that significantly increase their value. There's something magical about finding one of these hidden treasures. It reminds us that even today, in a world of machines and precision, little accidents and imperfections can still slip through. Those imperfections make these coins unique, turning everyday pocket change into a piece of history and a coveted collector's item. Each coin is a small story, a story of a busy mint worker, a slip of machinery, and a lucky collector who happened to notice what others overlooked. For seasoned numismatists, the hunt for a rare 1997 quarter is one of many ongoing quests, part of the thrill that keeps them searching roll after roll. For casual collectors, it's a reminder that treasures are often hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered. All it takes is a little patience, a careful eye, and the willingness to look just a little closer. So tonight, take a moment to go through that jar of change sitting on your dresser or the rolls of coins you've saved in your desk drawer. Weigh them, inspect them, and see what secrets they hold. You never know what you might find, and the next great discovery might just be in your hands already. And if you think you found something unusual, don't spend it. Get it checked out by a professional, or send it to a respected grading service for verification. Because what seems like just another quarter could actually be a rare piece of numismatic history. Collectors and auction records confirm that the value of these 1997 Washington quarters can range from $38,000 to $110,000 depending on the type of error, the condition of the coin, and the market demand. Imagine holding something so valuable, so rare, in your hand, something you've walked past 1,000 times without realizing what it was. So go ahead. Take a closer look at your change tonight. The next great find, the next big story, could be waiting there. And maybe, just maybe, it's a 1997 Washington quarter worth far more than 25 cents.